There's some breaking news to tell you about now, and Russian emergency services say at least 10 people have been killed in a plane crash between Moscow, the capital, and St. Petersburg. Let's bring in Daniel Hawkins in Moscow for more on this. Daniel, what more are you hearing about this plane crash?
Well, details are coming in very thick and fast here. We have to really pick out what's coming in from official sources. What we know so far is that a plane has crashed. It was an Embraer 600 private jet that was coming in from St. Petersburg to Moscow. It's crashed in the Tver region. Witnesses report hearing at least one explosion before the crash. Reports in the Russian media, unconfirmed so far officially, are saying this aircraft could have been taken down by air defense systems in the Tver region. Now, from the videos we're seeing on social media, there does appear to be witnesses that have filmed this crash, that have filmed the plane coming down, some sort of trail of smoke coming from the plane as it crashes to the ground and is burning on the ground. We understand emergency services say around 14 people are dead in this crash. There are no survivors, but more importantly, Rosaviatsia, which is the Russian aviation authority, has said that Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner PMC, Wagner private military company, was among those on board, or was at least listed as among those people on board. That is being confirmed, or rather written about, by multiple Russian media accounts as we speak. There is other information coming in as well that the second plane, also allegedly belonging to Yevgeny Prigozhin, has turned around and is heading back to St. Petersburg. Now, we don't know who's on board that plane, if that information is confirmed, but that plane has come down, and the Russian Aviation Authority is saying officially that Yevgeny Prigozhin was listed among those 14 passengers on board.
Quite significant, if this is the case, that Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Russian mercenary group, the Wagner group, was on board this private plane. I imagine there's been no official confirmation yet from Russian authorities on this.
Yes, there's no official confirmation that Prigozhin was physically on board that plane. Some journalists are reporting they're in touch with his press secretary, who's refusing to confirm that information. The press secretary allegedly saying she refuses to believe this information. That information, though, that he was listed among the passengers on board, has come from the Russian Aviation Authority, and certainly the eyewitness accounts, the videos we're seeing, unable, of course, to independently verify, as this has happened literally minutes ago, do show this plane coming down with a trail, some sort of trail next to it, in the sky.
Okay, so if you're just joining us, Daniel, just stay with us. Just to remind our viewers of this breaking news out of Russia, Russian emergency services saying that at least 14 people have been killed in a plane crash between Moscow, the Russian capital, and St. Petersburg. Our correspondent, Daniel, telling us that this was a private plane, and some Russian news agencies now saying that Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the Russian Wagner mercenary group, was reportedly on board this plane, unconfirmed, as Daniel was saying. Just remind our viewers, Daniel, of who Yevgeny Prigozhin is and the bad blood between him and the Kremlin recently.
Well, anybody following the news out of Russia over the last 3 months would know Prigozhin has hardly been out of the media spotlight during this time. Yevgeny Prigozhin was once a very close Putin ally. He was known as Putin's chef because the catering company he owned reportedly provided catering services for the Kremlin. He built his business in catering and various other business ventures, but he's primarily known, of course, for founding PMC Wagner, Russia's private military company, which for many years was working in the shadows, with officials denying any knowledge of its existence, any official confirmation. That private military company came to the limelight, particularly during the conflict in Ukraine, fighting on the front lines and proving itself as one of Russia's, if not Russia's, most potent, organized and dangerous fighting force, taking under control the city of Bakhmut earlier this year. That relationship, as you say, turned to bad blood in June when Yevgeny Prigozhin, responding to allegations of a strike against his fighters, the camps belonging to his fighters, led a mutiny onto Moscow, capturing an army building in Rostov and very quickly taking over that army HQ and moving onto Moscow before very suddenly, after negotiations involving the Belarusian president, Lukashenko, standing down. Now, after that, there was a lot of speculation what would happen to Prigozhin. He was investigated, criminal charges were leveled against him for mutiny. They were subsequently dropped. His company then moved to Belarus, and it was just days ago, I believe our viewers can see on the screen there, that he filmed a video from Africa saying that the operations of PMC Wagner would move onto the African continent and would serve Russia's interests there. That video came out just a day ago. So this is a major shock, and if confirmed, of course, hugely significant.
Hugely significant, major breaking news. And of course, we'll keep a close eye on all of this for you and bring you the latest with Daniel, who's our correspondent in Moscow there. Daniel Hawkins, thank you. A reminder, if you're just joining us, of this breaking news story out of Russia at this hour. A business jet has crashed in Russia and killed at least 14 people, according to Russian emergency services. And several news agencies and, in fact, the Russian aviation authority saying that the head of the Wagner mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was on the passenger list. Unconfirmed yet whether or not he has been killed, but they are saying that he was on the passenger list. This was a private plane which was headed from Moscow to St. Petersburg, I understand, and Yevgeny Prigozhin was said to be on the plane itself, not confirmed once again by Russian authorities. Daniel Hawkins is live with us from Moscow. Daniel, there was obviously after this, the mutiny by Prigozhin, there had been some deal, as you mentioned, negotiated with Belarus, and he had been in Belarus, in fact, for some time. Any information as to why he would have been back in Russia?
Well, despite the very serious charges leveled against Yevgeny Prigozhin following this mutiny, he didn't suffer any consequences. The criminal charges against him were dropped in a very surprise move by the Russian prosecution. He was, in fact, seen at the St. Petersburg Forum. Photos appeared of him in the Russian media meeting guests from Africa at that media forum. There are also photos circulating in Russian media of him in Russia following that mutiny. So despite the initial information that he would be sent to Belarus into effective exile, according to the Russian media reports, that simply wasn't the case. He had free movement, he attended forums, he met people, delegates from Africa with which Wagner signed various deals to provide security services for. So it's clear that his dealings, whatever they were in Russia, hadn't come to an end. What's interesting is the location this plane has also crashed. The Russian air defenses are particularly active to the east of Moscow, in the areas of Belgorod, those sort of areas on the borders, which often suffer drone attacks as a result of this Ukrainian conflict. The chances of a plane being shot down by accident by air defenses in the Tver region, which is way, way north of Moscow, and not a region that's commonly targeted by drones or shelling, is extremely unlikely that such a thing could have happened by accident. And again, we're just speculating here. We're sort of providing some analysis, but this wasn't a region that was prone to conflict or any sort of drone attacks.
All right, we're speculating, of course, as we say, and we have to be careful about that. But as you know, as you read social media right now, the speculation is that he was eliminated, Yevgeny Prigozhin, and of course, I mean, all eyes are going to be on the Kremlin on this.
Yes, we're going to be waiting for a response, of course, from the Kremlin. We understand the governor of Tver region has taken under personal control this incident, this investigation into this crash. And again, we have to stress at this point, it's not been confirmed that Prigozhin was physically aboard. It has been confirmed he was in the passenger lists. And there is information also coming through just over the past few minutes that Dmitry Utkin, who was Prigozhin's effectively right-hand man, his deputy commander in PNC Wagner, was also listed as a passenger. Again, no confirmation that he's physically or was physically on that jet, but was listed among those names. We understand also from the flight tracking website, a second jet was also in the air that's turned around and gone back to St. Petersburg. We don't know who was on that jet. We don't have access to the passenger lists as of yet. But we understand a second plane has turned around and returning to St. Petersburg. And we'll be waiting to see who was in the lists on that jet, obviously, as well.
OK, Daniel, we'll leave it there for now. And of course, we'll come back to you when there is new information. Again, no confirmation that Yevgeny Prigozhin was on this plane that went down between Moscow and St. Petersburg, that crashed between Moscow and St. Petersburg, but at least 14 people killed. However, his name was on the passenger list, as Daniel mentioned there. We'll bring you the latest on this story as and when information becomes available.